With every match, a warrior is born. Step inside the ring. This is the Whip Podcast with your host, devastating Daryl Pace and Deshaun Whipdog Whipple.
What's going on, everybody? We're back for another edition of the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders Podcast, a.k.a. The Whip Show. Season 3 has been rolling, man. I'm like, this is crazy. We done had the best guests ever. You know how y'all can follow us each and every week on Friday on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Anchor, YouTube. If you got a Flintstones telephone, you can just put Whip Show in. You can hear us anytime. So don't worry, you got us. But people that are watching the video, I know what you see. You're seeing my tag team partner's name right there underneath mine. You're seeing Daryl Pace. Unfortunately, Daryl is on the road tonight, so he couldn't be here. So he gave the reins of the show just to me. Hopefully I can do this, because I'm going to tell you, I'm okay with the interviews, but I'm bringing in one of the best interviewers in the pro wrestling game. I mean, this guy is an OG when it comes to podcasting. Me before, I don't even know if they recorded it podcasting when this man started. But I tell you what, we got him right here. We got the man. And it is an honor to have you, sir. Mr. Shin-Blade. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much for calling me an OG, even though I don't even think I'm an OG. I don't even think I'm the best in the game. I just think I'm just me, because for me, I just go around, I interview, I do a podcast, I have a co-host with Mika Villas on the Shy Lounge. I just try to be the most authentic person that I am. And plus now that in this wrestling media business, almost everybody has a podcast, and even in podcasting, almost every other person has a podcast. So I try to do mine as organic as I can as far as Shin-Blade is concerned. And honestly, I cannot follow your energy as far as opening up the show. I was thinking, like, when I saw the whip, I was thinking like this kid, like, I watch you whip and do I nene, or do, whip it like the old 70s song.
Woo!
Let it whip.
It's funny
Let's do
you
it
said
right.
that. Back in the day, I was an independent pro wrestler, and my first theme song was Devo's Whip It. It was corny, I know, but I used it. I'm sorry. But again,
okay, that was corny.
It was very
that
corny.
was corny compared to I forget who sings the funk song "Let It Whip." It's on my mind, but
the Daz
it'll
Band.
hit me like 3 a.m. in the morning.
I think they were called the Daz Band. Let It Whip.
Yeah, okay. Somebody go Google that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but again, man, thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. I've been trying to get you on for a minute, so I'm glad you were able to step in. But first things first, you kind of already talked about it, but I want to step back first. Before we even go there, in this pandemic world of wrestling, where are you from right now? Where are you located, and how are you maneuvering through this pandemic world?
Well, currently I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. Right now, as of this date of recording, I've been in Baltimore for 12 years. I moved from Hampton Roads, Virginia, to 757, home of one of the greatest basketball players ever, Allen Iverson. And then before that, I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii. And that's where I was born. So maneuvering around this pandemic has not been easy for practically almost anybody. I thank God above and my situation, or whatever you want to call it, that I have not contracted COVID-19 yet. I am fully vaccinated as of last month. So, even if I do, it's more like asymptomatic. You need to go sit down somewhere for 14 days and whatever. And I had an uncle that died from it in the first months of it, when we were all still freaking out. And we couldn't go to Ohio for the funeral. And it didn't take my uncle dying to to recognize a true virus. It's just that just like the flu, the virus goes through your nose and your mouth, and now we're seeing like hundreds of internet videos of Karens and Kens not wearing masks. I just saw one this morning from New York about a Karen in a bagel shop not being served by a black person who was more like instructed not to serve anybody without a mask, and she called him. Is the language limited?
No, do your thing. Go do your thing.
She labeled him a bitch ass N-word. Wow. So it was like the audacity. Somebody is calling me right now. I'm sorry. Probably telemarketing. So like now it's like for us for us, we know we have to wear a mask and stay true to the pandemic. We lost so many people so far. I think we're over 500,000. And in the wrestling business, people are having COVID, and it's a risk to go out and wrestle matches. The sweat and the funk and just being there in the moment. But it's giving us entertainment that we can enjoy. I can say that I'm not a fan of the Thunderdome that WWE is doing. It's kind of awkward to me because I'm a physical person. And by the way, I don't think you said this on this podcast, but this is my first time being interviewed via Zoom. And I'm trying to get the hang of it, and I feel like old man on the porch, doing the Zoom interview, because we were supposed to do this weeks ago, and you told me about it, and I was just like, what is Zoom? What is this? And I
can't believe that, man. The world has been using Zoom for the last year, man.
I never used Zoom before because I'm so used to being physical with people, hanging out with them. Even if I have to socially distance in an area, I'm so used to, and that's what my podcast does with interviews. I never Zoomed anybody. I never called anybody. In fact, there's a hip hop artist in England that was asking for an interview. So that's going to be one of my first ones. So I probably had to just rip the audio and put it on my podcast and whatever. So I'm getting new to this though. But again, I'm used to hitting the road and sitting down with people and just talking to them face to face. And there's also a psychology when you're sitting down with someone and talking to them compared to being on a phone call or being on a Zoom. Number one, you got to wear clothes when you're out there. Because a lot of people do Zoom with no pants on. So, or like the women want the gray sweatpants. Show off your sweatpants on the Zoom call.
Are you shooting with me right now, man? You don't have any pants on right now, do you? You're shooting with me, aren't you?
No, I gotta wear pants. I mean,
okay.
I'm doing this off of a tablet instead of a computer. So if it falls, you're gonna see what Shin-Blade's really wearing. This ain't an X-rated show. You put this on YouTube. I don't want you to get flagged.
For sure, man.
I don't want people to get jealous.
Oh man. For sure.
Man. Thank God and thank my life that I've never been that exposed before. The Kardashian type videos and whatever. I'm just trying to keep that part private.
Oh man, no pun intended. You know what I mean?
You don't want to see your boy in action.
Oh man, y'all see that man can talk, man.
This is Paul. It's just like the Joe Budden podcast.
Well, shit, man. I want to ask you this, man. Just like the rest of us, we all fell in love with wrestling at an early age. But can you kind of take me back? What was your draw? What made you first start liking the world of professional wrestling?
I don't know what it was though. I think it was mostly the showmanship of the product. I remember growing up and my family and my people around me loved boxing. And I didn't understand boxing as a kid, and I thought boxing was boring, but it's more of a mind type It's more of a mind type sport, looking at it now. And I would see like mostly NWA, and I would see like the characters that they would play on TV. Like these guys would go out and beat themselves up, vice versa, and come back and do it again like every week. I thought like it was weird to fight someone and come back and still get your butt kicked, or you kick the butt. And it was just so interesting to me. They would get on TV, they would talk this game, talk the promos into the ring, tell what they're gonna do to you, and it just had me hooked. And plus, I said this on my show on Shy Lounge maybe like a couple years ago that there's a correlation between wrestling and hip hop. Ric Flair, I remember, to me personally, Ric Flair was like the ultimate flosser when he was on television. And, some of us will say Scarface and some of us will say other things, but I think Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen inspired us as Black people, not African Americans, to floss.
Yep.
Like, kind of like keeping up with the Jones, like you ain't this unless you got this animal on me, or diamonds encrusted, or whatever. And now you see hip hop videos after 1985, and it's kind of like that. Like you ain't nothing unless you get like a certain bag for your girlfriend or your boyfriend. It's 2021. We don't.
2021. You're right. You're right.
Everybody's becoming everybody now. We don't know until you get to the brass tacks of it. Anyway, it was just so impressive to me that it was like a real showmanship. And one like Four Horsemen hooked me, Sting hooked me. The Ultimate Warrior did, but I thought he was crazy like back in the 2000s with his blogs and stuff. And I actually liked the story when he came back and him and Vince McMahon hugged and rekindled. And sadly, he passed away after that big monumental weekend that he had. And to let you know, I was at a Mick Foley comedy show in Baltimore when he died.
Oh man, okay.
So I'm enjoying Mick Foley's comedy and leaving and found out Ultimate Warrior died.
Oh man.
So again, it was just something that just got me hooked, and we were like, to me it was just like the comic books back in the day in middle school, high school, elementary school. We were nerds, we were geeks. Yep. Nobody wanted to touch us. Video games also, nobody wanted to touch us. Nobody wanted to be with us. And now 2021, Marvel and DC, and it's the cool thing to do now.
I'm glad you touched on that, man, because I don't want to cut you off, but I want to step in with that right quick. Now we got a word for it. We're called blurs, Black nerds, man. So Take me back to high school, because I know with me, in high school, me and my buddies walked around with the NWO t-shirts. We made aluminum, paper, cardboard belts, and the girls were not liking us at all. But we were into it. We had magazines. Take me back to Shin-Blade in high school.
Personally, I wouldn't like you either if you had the cardboard belts. Number one. But other than that, we would have been hanging. We would have been hanging in high school. I was a straight up. I wouldn't say I was a straight up geek, but I was a loner in high school. Like I wasn't liked by a lot of people. I wasn't liked by a lot of people. I knew the popular kids, and I knew the kids in the middle, and I knew the geeks, the nerds. So I knew all of those people, but I wasn't liked because I wasn't popular. Number one, I wasn't wearing the flashy clothes, the Jordans. I had like a Kobe Bryant jersey and Allen Iverson jersey, which is in storage somewhere. I should have broke it out when Kobe died. Rest in peace, Mom, but it still hits me to this day. The Attitude Era was kind of different for us because everybody was into it. When Stone Cold got on TV, everybody watched it. Even if you weren't a wrestling fan, he was like, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do, but I'm going to still do my job. The Rock was up there. I was a fan of him since Rocky Maivia, even though that was corny. And also watch Young Rock every morning on Hulu. Even though the show is kind of horrible, but I like the stories behind it. Um, The Rock, D Generation X telling everybody to suck it. People in classrooms telling teachers to suck it, even though that's not cool. It was just such a different time, and I think the whole thing, it was just different in school. So I remember in high school, every now and then somebody would get a Stone Cold Stunner in the hallway before in between classes and walk up and do Stone Cold Steve Austin impressions. But I was that guy who looked at the stats, looked at how many times they held the belt. I was into Bret the Hitman Hart before he left. And I remember back in the day, I didn't have money, so like the pay-per-views, you had to like turn on that channel.
Wait.
It had the squiggly, and you had to listen to it. You had to listen to see what was going on. So I remember Survivor Series 1997. I went to school, and people were like, Bret Hart lost the belt, and he walked out and quit and showed the finger. I'm like, what, really? And I found out everything, and I was dejected because Bret Hart was one of my favorite guys. And I, ironically enough, his match with Mr. Perfect at SummerSlam '91, I was hooked to Bret Hart, and he was like the guy that I met on my first day in the wrestling media business. And I was such a mark. I was trembling. I was like, if it all ended tomorrow, I'd have been good. I'd have been done. Like Bret Hart, I was just such a mark. And I know that's a curse word to wrestling media fans. I mean, wrestling media people. It depends on, it's just like, I don't say it, but the N word to black people, you say it in a certain way. It's like, you my friend, or I'm saying it in terms of disrespect.
Yeah.
Like real talk.
Right.
So yeah, anyway, I was a nerd. I had guys that I hung out with, and it was just that. But again, just like the comic book crowd now, it's like if you can't talk about what happened on Raw, what happened on SmackDown, what happened on Nitro, what happened on Thunder, in a secondary basis, then I couldn't talk to you.
Yeah. I get it.
I still have a guy to this day that comes up and he does the crotch chop and the NWO, and he's an older guy. He likes that American Pie type humor and rock stars, and he says wrestling is boring. And I tell him all the time, like, WWE, they need the advertising money. I mean, it's not what we want, but they're making that money.
Right.
And I'm very critical of WWE, and I want it to be PG-13 product, but let's be real. They're not going to do what we think. Is great enough as it is that WrestleMania 37 has enough color in there, more than the bare minimum.
Yep.
So we have the main event. We, at least in my mindset, I know Drew's going to get it back because he's supposedly the guy in the business, even though Lashley got it. And I made a rant about Lashley, no, The Miz winning from Bobby Lashley's work, the white man taking the black man work and shining with it on Black History Month on the last day.
Oh man.
So, but when MVP pulled up the next night, I was glad.
Well,
you owe me.
Since we got there, and because I like to bounce around a little bit in my interview, so don't be shocked. But I'm on your page, and I know you're a big fan of the Hurt Business. And let's talk about when I originally was going to have you on the show was for the Black Media Wrestling Media Show, and you spoke on it just now. What do you think about when you see so many Black performers on our television in prominent roles now, and not just playing, and no knock against Junkyard Dog, Coco Beware, Kamala, but you know what I mean when I say that. Those type of stereotypical characters. What do you think about?
I'm so glad that you said those names and you didn't say the name of Mike Jones.
Who? No, we're not going to use him. We're not even going to talk about that guy because I think I still owe $50 for a picture. Long story.
No. Let me tell you something. Keep your $50. And even though this is maybe I can be a little free with the words, but fuck Virgil. I don't care. Woo! Sambo. He's a grade A Sambo, and I'm shooting, and he charged when I was on a radio show, he tried to charge us $15,000 for an interview. No, I'm actually serious. And he was hot off his Sam Roberts interview from New York, doing the F money and whatever and all that. And I know the people who runs the social media, so Virgil don't run it. He's not the one that's doing the social media. And the people that made lonelyvirgil.com, which is comedy to me, but every time I see him, I just don't say anything to him. He's just another N-word looking for a check.
Yep. Okay.
And we had the Ted DiBiase on the show, and he was saying the same thing, like he's just trying to make money off his name, even though now Ted got into a little trouble, and hopefully he's rebounded from it because he's actually a good guy. Yeah. And it's funny because growing up again, you saw the $1 Million Man on television, and you growing up as a black little boy, and you seeing this white dude with a black dude carrying his bags and his money, and I'm thinking like, yo, I hate the $1 Million Man. Yeah. But it turns out 20 years later or whatever, it's the opposite.
Funny how it goes full circle, man.
Yeah, again, it was kayfabe, and I was like, yeah, you deserve to carry his bags because you weren't worth anything. And plus, SummerSlam 91 was the special needs clap moment of the night. You winning $1 Million belt because nobody cared.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go back to your question about representation. I absolutely love it. It's that Bobby Lashley is the WWE champion. The Hurt Business is one of the top groups, and I think it is the top group in WWE. I don't watch the television like that. Rich Swann is the Impact champion. I'm trying to think of something for AEW as far as representation. I could say Nyla Rose, first transgender, good friend of mine. I think AEW is not there with representation. I don't want to shoot on them because I love the people. Ring of Honor, Shane Taylor, awesome dude.
Yes.
Shane Taylor Promotions, the Sons of Savagery, Ron Hunt, the Reverend. They're just doing it. I love it. Kenny King. So even if I had children, I would just show them this is us on TV. This is how we are represented. I was one of those guys that hated the New Day when they first started, because they were like preacher dudes and shucking and jiving, and we've seen that for the last 20 years. And shout out to Butch Reed, who just passed away. I talked to him a couple years ago, and he was giving me the same thing about Black in the Business, Teddy Long, and I thank them for that, even though they had to inhale the bullshit at the time, including Ron Simmons, who's the first Black heavyweight champion, recognized heavyweight champion. And before then, it was Bobo Brazil. That was like one of my first interviews when I went out alone. It's just great to me, seeing all that representation. Hopefully, it's not just a spell. Because I was disgusted about Kofi Kingston winning the WWE Championship, not on him, but the people who were talking. And we always have this every February. I don't know in your neck of the woods or in your part of social media, but there's always a talk about why there's no Black WWE champion.
Right.
And a lot of times, some of us try to split hairs and say the World Heavyweight Championship, the big gold belt. And I say, that's cool, but that's not it. It's a secondary championship. It's been made over many times, just like TNA Impact Wrestling Legends belt. It was renamed so many times. So I always say The Rock was the first Black world champion in WWE, and everybody discounts it because he's biracial and WWE promotes his Samoan heritage, which is a true fact, but he's still Black.
Right.
Rocky Johnson, Soul Patrol, first Black tag team champions with Tony Atlas. And then after that, Kofi Kingston, everybody was like, we got to get the Black powers and Kofi Kingston's Ghanaian.
Right.
He's the first African American world heavyweight champion. And now with Bobby Lashley, I think he is and it's disgusting for me to say it, the first full Black heavyweight champion. So we always talk about Black like it's milk. Like, you're whole black. This guy's 2%
Right.
black. The vice president is skim milk or whatever have you. And Barack Obama, he's something else or whatever. And it's disgusting to me.
Yeah.
Because black is black. If they have knowledge of self, I don't care. As long as they do it. We got full whole black people that are Sambos in themselves. They don't recognize me saying.
Mm-hmm.
They think it's their Uncle Ruckus.
Yep.
They got a vitiligo in reverse type thing going on with their skin. But I tell them all the time, you black.
Mm-hmm.
Embrace it.
There's there's a legend that I will not say his name, but he swore that there was no racism in the business back in his day, and he will fight it to this day. I'm not going to say his name, but
give me the year. Give me the year.
I'm gonna just say his initials start with TA. His initials are TA. You understand what I'm talking about? Respect what the man did in the business, but the way he sits there and says nobody did anything to him that was racial, even though we know the stories.
We need to dig up Bad News Brown and kind of give him the business, because I like Duke. I like Duke, but again, the way that he comes off sometimes to me is a little Sambo-ish, but I still have to respect the legend himself. Yeah. And, his story was a ill-fated story. This guy could have been world champion, but something happened, and I believe racism was a part of it, that he never became world champion. World champion of an indie company that nobody really knows about in the early 90s, but he was a guy that he was built like a god back in the early 1980s. He was built like that. He could have been world champion, but it just wasn't happening. I mean, Rocky Johnson had more charisma. Junkyard Dog had more of a draw, even though Junkyard was on the white stuff, and many people say that. But it was that Duke. I don't want to say this so much because I don't want. This is not the Breakfast Club. This is not Donkey of the Day.
Right.
But it's just that when people say stuff like that, it's like, do you know where you are? Spiritually, mentally, physically, maybe not physically, but where you are. I mean, because there may not be racism, like nobody's calling you an N-word or being disparaging on you, but it's out there.
Yeah.
And I said this on the podcast many months ago. There are people out there that like you. I was going to call you Whip Dog. That like you, but don't like the people around you.
That part.
They don't like you.
That part. You're absolutely right.
And I find that disrespectful. It's just like if if I'm out with my co-host Mika Villas and somebody likes me, shakes my hand, hey Shin-Blade, how you doing? They look at her like, oh. Number one, I'm gonna find that as disrespect because that's my friend. Number two is like, she's nothing except for a female. She's nothing really different as far as complexion and stature or whatever.
Wow.
And honestly, I would refer Mika Villas to do an interview with you guys when your co-host is back and everything is under control, because she has a lot to give.
Sounds good.
I'm sorry, we're just trailing off.
But I want to step in right there what you said, and it's true. And I just want to make a statement because, and I can't remember who said this. It's about 4 or 5 years ago, but they were saying every person in the world would have no problem living next to Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods, but if it was Michael Jordan's homeboy, would they want to live next to him? You see what I'm saying? So it's in total agreement with what you said, man. And that's why I feel the same way, man. That same athlete told a story of he was riding out with Dirty Dick Slater one time. And the guys in the NWA actually set him up by sending him to a show. They booked him on a show, but it was a fake show at a KKK rally. He didn't know. Like, why do you, that's not a rib. You understand what I'm saying? So he drove up to it, and they were gonna, you know what they could have did to this man. That's not a rib. You understand what I'm saying? And to think that was funny, come on, bro.
No, that is not funny. And there was a story about Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch, where Dick Murdoch did that to Dusty Rhodes. And again, I'm going all over the place. I forgot to mention this growing up, but Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes were the blackest dudes in the business at the time, as far as drawing power and money. Ric Flair was a flossy dude with the outfits and everything. Dusty Rhodes was a hard working dude, like the black dude that you see working the custodians at the job or whatever. It's like the CEO versus the janitor, even though that's not a good word to use. But in the words of Chuck D, every brother ain't a brother. So again, that to me is not funny. And personally, if dude was dead, and back in those days it was swept under the bus, he said something, whatever. And, you know, I've been in places in West Virginia where a friend of mine who's Caucasian took me to a restaurant. He said, "Oh shit, you gotta try this restaurant out." So we go in the restaurant, it's like, okay, the diner, excuse me. I go in there and you can hear the record scratch. Like we're in the sticks of West Virginia. Like, who is this guy? And he's telling me like, "Yo, we gotta have this." I'm like, "Dude, let's go. Let's get our stuff to go and get out of there." And I sat next to, we sat at a table in the corner next to some Proud Boys in camo gear, Forest camo gear. So if this wasn't the daytime, we could have drove off. They could have followed us and did whatever it is. You would not know who I am or anything of that nature. So one of the good boys.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, there were many stories of racism in wrestling, and it's so amazing how they worked out. It's amazing to me how Carlos Colon is not recognized as an NWA champion. He beat Ric Flair in Puerto Rico, and the NWA didn't recognize him. Same thing with Bobo Brazil. Forget who he beat. I think it was Buddy Rogers or somebody. He beat him. They never recognized it. They gave it back. Even a Latin guy that Ric Flair got beat by, that Roddy Piper could have lost his life on too. That was a story I just found out. So now it's coming full circle that you're getting yours. Now we having a black president. Now we having a black vice president. There's so many things going on to the point where if you're racist, you know, you might as well kill yourself because you can't live with it. And you know, I absolutely love it. I have a niece. She's 1 right now, and I just love showing her what it is to have black excellence, not only in wrestling but in other forms too, where you and I, we grew up and we didn't think we could be at certain places. So you know, when you called me an OG, I thought I was being gassed up a little bit, because the podcast game has been going on for so long, and I had followed Colt Cabana for a while because I like the format that he does. But again, I looked at it, I was like, where the black people at? Like, who is really doing this? Then there were some people, but it was more like and this is ultra disrespect when I say it's the ultra mark. Like, they couldn't keep their markness to themselves when they interview. So again, a little admiration for you when you turn up. That is just your style. But when you meet somebody, you don't bounce up around like a Super Bowl when you first meet somebody. You have to be calm for it, because a lot of these, and I'm giving secrets away, a lot of these wrestlers hearing, you know, their own stuff, and, you know, after a while they just don't like to hear it anymore. So again, I love it. Glad that you reached out. And just connecting, period. Like, we need I think in a couple of years we need a black media kind of a collective.
I agree. I agree.
Black wrestling media collective.
That's actually something I did talk about. Go, I'm sorry.
And also, not to cut you off, before you continue, I got to shout out the Wrestling Realm and Brian H. Waters, who's from Baltimore, and he does this thing too. So anybody who wants to check out Brian H. Waters, check him out on Instagram in the wrestling realm. He does a lot. He not only does wrestling, but he does like a breaking the ceiling with business.
Okay.
So yeah, I gotta refer you to him.
Yo, for sure, man, for sure. Y'all heard that. Check him out, Wrestling Realm. But I'm glad you said that because I actually did talk to some of the other Black podcasts, and I definitely think that is something that needs to be done in the next coming years. But I want to go back to the first time you stepped into wrestling media, because most people, as we come up, we want to be pro wrestlers after we watch it. What made you, or how did you even get into wrestling media in the first place, man?
Well, honestly, I'll take a 10-year step back and say that I wanted to get into wrestling in Virginia, but I didn't know how, and I didn't know where to go. And of course, I grew up under working class family, so it wasn't like I was going to sit in the house and train and then go to wrestling school and pay the money. So of course, I was broke. Well, not broke, but I was working menial job and paying bills. I didn't have enough to start wrestling. When I moved to Baltimore, I was into acting, and what's funny about it was I moved to Baltimore way after when The Wire closed. I didn't know. I never watched The Wire before in my life at that time, and I was thinking like maybe I can put myself out there, go in the theater, and go do some small time indie movies and whatever. And that didn't work out due to personal life. And I remember, I would say, I think I connected with somebody who was having auditions to a radio show. And apparently we talked on the phone, and I got on the radio and didn't work out. Of course, that radio station or show didn't work out as much either. And she referred me to a guy who was running a radio show. And it was a two-man radio show, internet radio, and one of the guys was out, and he said, and the guy, we sat down for like a couple hours and talked and about history and whatnot, and we just did it. We just did the show, and I was nervous because I always had that mindset of I don't want to be on anybody's show unless like I can push more numbers or make it exciting. And it sounds egotistical, but that's just how I am. I don't want to tank numbers. Right. So I did it for like 3 weeks apart from my personal life, and I got a love for it and interviewed a couple of indie wrestlers. And, you know, the Martin is starting to go away because, you know, you're not interviewing the top guys. This radio show was starting out. So for about a year, I was on Facebook and just going on their group page and just putting material out there. I was mainly WWE because that was the only thing that was out besides Ring of Honor and Impact and people listened to. A year later, I was like a producer role on their show. They changed it from a radio to a internet radio, like doing it out of your house. And for some reason, I had like this itch. I had this itch that I wanted to be on the show, but at first I wanted to be like a producer. Like these two guys had the show, but I'm a producer, but people know who I am, like another character on the show. So it ended up being that they would do interviews and I would hold the camera when I was out there at the wrestling shows. And the first one that was at ACW in Glen Burnie, Millersville, Maryland. It's like down the road. And that's where I met Bret Hart. I met Ron Simmons. I met a couple other people, but I gotta look deep in the photos for that. And I think, I honestly, it was Evan Ginsberg, who was the executive producer of The Wrestler. He had a internet television show in Long Island, and we went up there, and I drove, and I was up there doing it. And I was also nervous because I wanted to enhance the label. So I was up there and I was on the couch and I kept my hands together like a prayer, like a prayer type thing. Because I didn't know what to do. My hands were clammy, my hands were like wet and everything, like getting part of my language. It was getting moist. So it was like that, and you know, my family saw it and they said, I love the thing you do with the prayer hands, and I was just like, oh, really? Okay, I don't want to piss people off. And there was a picture that I was taking at Times Square where I was doing the shy hands, and that was when it was born. And people started liking that, except for Jay Lethal, because his mother is a church-going Christian. Because we was at a Ring of Honor show a couple weeks ago. I mean, a couple weeks after that, and met people and was at the after party bar. And I met, that's where I met Matt Seidel and ACH for the first time. And when I did it, he was like, whoa, dude, I can't do that. And he had a tattoo of a cross on his hand. And I thought I pissed him off. And I was like, dude, my mom goes to church too. Like, she's a church going woman, Baptist, Jesus Christ and everything. And we kind of, it wasn't like a big beef or anything. Like, it was kind of quelled like months later at a taping. And that's when I had to alter it into like a house form, like almost like a house, like the way to do it. Because again, there are Christians in wrestling that think that I'm trying to go against Jesus Christ. I'm like, that's part of my religious background. Lord have mercy. So that's how I got into it. And next you know, I started creating vlogs on my YouTube page of traveling, going to indie shows and having fun with the guys. And I started getting into that, and people started saying, oh, you have a character, you're this peaceful zen like guy and whatever. And at the end of a year, I had a bad falling out with them, because it wasn't them, the two guys. It was more like they started putting like ultra marks in the group, and they were trying to roll like kind of like a rap entourage. Like, you got to let us in, which was 3, and we usually had somebody drive us around, like, because they had a car. So if you like let us in, and what I would do is talk to the promoter and say, if you let us in, can we get one more, because we had a guy who is doing the driving. And they would do that. But now it got to the point where we had to have like 5, 6, 7 people with us. And I was like, we don't make no money. We're nobodies. I mean, we're starting to come up, and like, who are we to look like Mike Tyson's crew? Like, if you let him in, you got to let 20 other people in. So I got disgusted with that, and creative differences, and I started my own shy lounge, and that was it. I just became like more like a monk, as what an indie wrestler told me that I resemble.
Nice. Well, you guys, you just heard of exclusive. If you didn't know, he just explained where the pose came from. I'm saying that's an exclusive here. But
yeah, because like I rarely get interviewed, because I'm not a guy that is in high demand. Everybody wants the indie guys. I mean, who knows? This show might have Andrade next. We might pray for that one, because he's out.
True.
But it's more like you have to be humble in this business, because one thing I get tired of, even with Black people or even other colors, that people push themselves as if they're sliced, like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And you go on their social media, they have maybe like 1,000, 2,000 followers or anything, and it's still nothing. Like, you got to have people to back you and build. And one thing about my podcast, I can say, I would never come to you like that. I would never come to you, this is the greatest, this is the best thing. I just say it is me. It's only me. If tomorrow, if I get like become like Chris Van Vliet or anybody of that nature, then I'm blessed. If I don't, then it is what it is. Because you have to stay humble. Even the elders would tell you, like, the same people that you see on the way up are the same people that you're going to see on the way down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the same thing with Mike Jones that he doesn't recognize. And again, this is another humbling moment, but when you DM'd me about being on the show and being an OG, it humbled me. Because when I read it, I was like, who the hell is he talking to? Like, he ain't talking to me like me and OG. I'm just doing a podcast. He's reaching out. And I thought it was like the gassing and the kissing behind type thing, which I don't take well. I don't like sycophant, period. So like even people that hang on to my word, even if I'm saying the wrong things and they hang on to it, I don't like. So anyway, I started doing that and I started traveling a lot to contacts and places where I would get interviews. And it was such a tedious process because everybody is so used to being on the phone or being on Zoom. And to me, it's the psychology of just sitting down and just rapping with people. And you get a different vibe than calling people because most of the time with Zoom and being on the phone, it's like, look, I got to call somebody. I got to do this, But sometimes, even if you sat down and do an interview, like, okay, all right, 5 minutes, it turns into 15 minutes, turns to 20 minutes. You're having a good time with that person. And it turns out that it turns out that you end up making a friendship and you're making a rapport with people because again, and I just had a talk before I even got on this podcast. Somebody had approached me because I was wearing a WrestleMania hoodie because it's raining outside right now today. And it was another black man. We just got in this talk about wrestling and he got really deep into it, the Hurt Business. And all of a sudden it was there. Yeah. It was that. And other times I wear the hoodie and people just like, wrestling's fake, right?
Oh man. Oh.
And honestly, I don't know the first thing to do, but I just want to give them wrestling moves to see. Did that hurt? Was it fake?
No, man. It's so crazy.
And shout out to Fred Yehai that you got the picture back there. That's one of my dudes, man. Like I really loved him in the Pure tournament in Ring of Honor. Anyway, I'm trailing a little bit. So again, whenever things are open, even though they are now, I'm fully vaccinated. I would love to come up to, was it Michigan?
Yes. We're out of Detroit area. Yes.
Are you from the D?
Yes.
Oh man, my uncle's from there. He's a big Lions fan.
Oh, I feel bad for him, dog. I feel bad for him. I had to give up years ago, man. But yes, we would love to have you come up, man, because we normally, before this, we were in our studio. We had a great studio, but obviously, Well,
that was like one of my quote unquote demands that if anybody wanted to interview me, I got to be there in the flesh, or if there's a show up there, I would come up there on the weekend and interview because it's different from Zoom to pressing the flesh, like handshakes and hanging out and whatever. And also it does well for mental health that you're making so many connections. And that's another thing that's humbling, that I'm connecting with people from Michigan and I don't even know how did I get that connection. Social media is a beautiful thing if you use it the right way. Because honestly, with Facebook, I deactivated my personal Facebook because, of the George Floyd killings and how some of our Caucasian brethren, like, were going in with not wearing masks and Trump 2020, and most of you think people ain't got a nickel in their pocket compared to Trump. And they were condoning January 6th, I assume.
Yeah.
So I broke away from him. I lost a lot of people. And there's a couple of wrestling legends that I'm still in contact with, but I don't talk to them like that. But being in this wrestling media business is just so awesome. And I said all the time that if it all ended tomorrow for me, I'd be content because I have stories to tell.
For sure.
It's not the greatest story in wrestling, but it's my story. Sure. And again, like I said, I'm still humbled by it. So I think I need you to amp up a little bit if you want to ask more questions.
All right, man. I see. And I want you to tell you this, and I just want to make sure I tell you this right here in front of you, in front of all our fans and your fans as well.
Please amp up a little bit what you're saying, though, because I'm drinking gaming powder to keep myself to keep
Oh
myself
man.
positive because, like I said, I'm trying to keep the energy up.
Oh, I got you. I got you. But I do want to
Thinking,
tell you this, man. You asked the question, and the reason I knew about you, I don't know if it was a couple years ago. I don't know. I was because I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I would
yeah,
see your interviews on there, man. I was like, man. And from my side, now I actually was an independent worker. I did that for years, and I had a couple tryouts for the WWE and whatnot. But seeing a brother on the wrestling media side, you know what I mean? I don't know. One thing about, I know you talked about Zoom and not making that person to person connection, but one thing about that TV and that internet, when you can push it through and people can connect with you. And I don't know what it was, but I just like the idea of seeing you interview people on YouTube, being a brother. And then how big or little it was when you did the whole Shin-Blade thing was awesome. So in my mind, I'm thinking, is he Wu-Tang? Is it with the Shaolins? I don't know. But it drew me in to want to know more about you, man.
Well, I will say this though. I am a Wu-Tang fan up until 2000. That was when RZA got, I think it was like the basement flooded or something, and his style had to change a little bit. But I mean, look, I don't even do verses, and I pulled up for RZA versus DJ Premier
Nice.
like a year ago, and I was in on it. This was when I still had my Facebook. I was pissed off because people kept saying RZA is going to wash DJ Premier, and I'm like, if you're a hip hop fan, DJ Premier is New York sound,
Yep.
boom bap, period.
Yep.
Not taking anything away from RZA. I wanted a fair, even battle, and it was a true party. I didn't watch Raekwon versus Ghostface because I thought that was too close, and they collaborated many times with each other. But anyway, I'm a big hip hop person. I try to stress hip hop on my podcast. A lot of times, the boom bap stuff, not this little we taking Molly and singing on all the songs.
Right.
And Duke, rainbow hair rat dude.
Oh man, look.
I don't do none of that. None of that.
Yo,
I can
what?
like I'd rather have Smurder on my podcast than have Rainbow Rat Dude talking about it.
Well, make sure, man, you get a chance. And if you need me to connect you, I don't know if you already interviewed him or not. Monteezy, Antoine Moore.
That's one of my good friends.
Oh, well, you know Monty. I should have known you know him, man. Yeah, I've had him on here.
Honestly,
he's a good
I have
dude,
a story
man.
about Monteezy. It's not a disrespectful one. Monteezy was doing scenes at the time for Drolix from NCW and Black Wall Street. And one of the things I did was my first time I went to WrestleCade in North Carolina, I taped his entrance that he was doing. And he will always hit me up on Facebook Messenger trying to get an interview together. I said, well, whenever we're in town together, let's do it. Every time we were in town together, we never did it. We were always doing something. And we was always doing something. Somebody is calling me. I'm sorry, this is so unprofessional.
You good, man. You good.
I should have turned the Bluetooth off on my mobile. Anyway, we never did it. And then now it's like him and Shane Strickland got together to do the Swerve City podcast. Now they have some kind of I wouldn't say loose bridge, but they have a small bridge to WWE where they're having talent on their shows. So he looked at me and said, "Oh man, you're gonna be big someday." And I looked at him like the same way I looked at you when I saw that email. I was like, "Who the hell is he talking to?" You know. So now I congratulate him. I text him on his number at times. He don't hit me back because I assume that he's busy a lot. He's making music videos and scenes. I don't take it personal.
Right.
But I'm just glad that what he has accomplished over the last 2 or 3 years. You know, because he did put the work in. I don't care what anybody says. He put that work in. Whether it be scenes, whether it be podcasting, music videos. One of my favorite Monteezy theme songs is "Take 'Em Out" by Hitman for Hire, Mr. Grimm. who's one of my good friends. Um, a lot of people haven't heard that song, but it's good. Other one is his theme for ACH,
Mm,
which
okay.
I love. So he's always working and doing it. Sammy Guevara's theme song,
Yep.
I like it. And the list goes on and on and on. But again, he's a hardworking dude, and thanks for you to. I really appreciate that you dropped his name on the pod.
Oh yeah.
Because it was him that got me to Mega Ran.
Nice.
That
Nice.
we connected. So like, I still got to work on that, even though COVID has messed a lot of things up. And it got me connected to Wale.
Okay.
So again, it's that whole networking thing. Like, I know this person, and then next you know, I end up knowing 5 more people because of them, whether high or low.
Now, guys, I want to step in real quick, right? And I want to ask you a question because you're talking about you meet these guys and the networking, but as you stated earlier, there's a million people doing podcasts. What would you tell somebody that walks up to you today and says, I would like to start a podcast. What should I do?
Actually, that's already been done.
What would you tell them?
It still continues to this day. And this is not a arrogant, egotistical type thing, but it's more about marketing when it comes to podcasts, because there are podcasters out there that have great points, they have great conversations, but in the realm of how social media is and the attention spans or whatever it is that we want to call it, nobody listens to them. So and this is why I don't trash podcasters for real. It's just that the people that nobody listens to sometimes has valid points. The people that everybody listens to are clowns, or they're just clowning around on their platform. So when I hear people say they want to make a podcast, it takes a lot of time and dedication, and you just can't be in your house doing a podcast and think that when you turn the recorder on to the return the recorder off that you did something. It takes a lot of marketing, reaching out, and sometimes even if you don't have special guests on your pod, you have to have points that can get people to listen to. And that's why with my podcast, I don't really do a lot of what happened on Raw, what happened on SmackDown, what happened on these shows. I pull points in the realm of wrestling news, of what people really want to hear. Nobody wants to hear. I'm trying to think of a match that was on Raw this week. Nobody. Damn, it's WrestleMania season, so I can't say anything. Okay, nobody wants to hear like old reference Alicia Fox versus a Bella Twin or something. That if it happened on Raw or something, some kind of throwaway match or whatever. Nobody wants to hear that, but they're more about now like Andrade getting released, Charlotte getting COVID, representation at WrestleMania, Bianca Belair. They want to hear the stuff that is out there. Now the stupid Vince-ism, no more leg slaps. Even though everybody does leg slaps in wrestling.
Yeah.
And Drew is a repeat offender of that. Doing the Claymore. And I love Drew. Drew's a great guy. But it's just that thing. So, when I get Mika, we talk about it, and I have a female point of view and another point of view on the podcast instead of me talking and ranting to a wall. I'm trying to think of some other news that came out recently, because I think everybody's on the Andrade train.
Yeah.
Right now, and then the fact that he doesn't have a 90-day clause in his contract,
right.
So he can pull up somewhere. And I told a guy that on my Facebook page, my guess or my bet is Impact Wrestling, because the AEW train is getting redundant a little bit.
Yeah.
And signing a whole bunch of 40 and 50-year-olds is not going to make your product better. It's going to make it like WCW, like WCW Light or whatever, another form of it. You need to nourish your younger indie talent. and put them out there. Like you see Darby Allin, I've been liking him ever since Evolve days. I was there when he was facing off against Ethan Page in a street fight where Ethan Page took a body bag, body slammed Darby Allin into the body bag, put him in there, put a bag full of tacks in the body bag, closed it up, and kept smacking him with a chair.
Woo!
This was in La Boom in Queens, New York, and Ethan Page is a great guy. He's awesome. I had to release that interview because I lost the tape a year ago. He's gonna kill me. But he did that. And Darby Allin is one of the younger talents. Ricky Starks, a younger talent. People that haven't had their face in the limelight. You need to enhance those. Sean Dean, Lee Johnson, some other people. Top Flight, which I have never heard of, but I was impressed.
Yeah.
I think they had a match with the Bucks, and then they just went down to AEW, and the rest was history.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a Private Party fan, but I do think AEW, there's a lot of guys we need to push a little bit more. Like, we get a lot of MJF, which I like, but there's so many more guys. Well,
Private Party I like, though. I guess I'm a close contact of Mark Quinn, even though he keeps giving me Chris Bosh look when it comes to keeping pictures. I have it on Instagram. Isaiah Cassidy is hilarious. They do a lot. I remember them when they were starting out for House of Glory Wrestling. MJF, I known him when he was a pup. I known him when he started out at Creator Pro and he was putting himself together. Now, I haven't called him in a long time, so if he goes MJF on me, I'm going to check him pretty quick.
Okay.
Not to be like an OG, like that kind of OG, but
see how he does, y'all. Y'all heard this, man.
Well, look, if you want me to shoot, I'm gonna shoot. But there's a lot of people that just need to come down off a high horse in wrestling when the lights come off, because people think that they're just like, I'm the greatest in the world, and then when the show is over and they're packing up and it's time to put on your street clothes, it's like they're still living the gimmick. And I know the internet can bust people, but we all know that we sleep in a house. Indie wrestling is not a lot of money as far as your middle of the road lower talent is concerned, because they shell out for former stars of certain companies, or current stars of certain companies. So it's just like, dude, like, just come on, we know, we know you on TV. Don't get yourself messed up like another Duke that goes by Real One. How you doing? Who I met him, and not to be gossiping, but he's like what they said in WWE when they kicked him off the buses and everything.
Seriously,
he like that dude. Like, I'm just like, okay, all right, I'm good. Like, you gotta, and not to be that arrogant, but I'm like, he gotta ask to come on my podcast or whatever.
Dig it.
Or I would give him the keys or whatever.
I get it.
What was up with Duke going to a wrestling show in a WWE wrestling show when you just got fired?
Oh man, was that the SummerSlam a couple years ago? Whatever it was, dog. It was
one of them, and you made a spectacle and an ass out of yourself, and was like, dude, you just got fired. And you made a shitty rap song talking about your sexual misappropriation, which you got cleared up because there was no evidence, which is okay. What was it called? No, he had a line I heard from Tim Cornette, and it was just laughing. Consensual penis or something. I think
yeah.
Like, it was some kind of trap song or whatever. Now, like, he's being promoted by Collar and Elbow and the Gun Brothers, the Good Brothers, doing their shows and whatever. And I met Big Cass. Big Cass is a cool guy, even though he's a trumper, what they said. And that time he had a seizure, I was at that show. I was backstage at House of Glory.
Seriously.
I mean, not House of Glory, House of Hardcore.
Yeah.
and he had a seizure out in the commons area, and people were standing around not doing anything, taking pictures while he was on the floor. And I literally, and it's not cool to strike people, but I literally had to push people out the way to say, look, we need medical help. And I ended up raining on somebody on Twitter because he posted that picture that, oh, Big Cass suffered a seizure. So, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, the dude could have died.
Yep.
Right there in front of your face. How would you feel? It's like Phil Collins at the end of the night. Like, you watched the man die.
Yeah.
And you could have saved him, and you could have did whatever. And, you know, and not to pull that, but there are times I've seen a man die, and it's not cool.
Yeah, I agree.
And like I said, I'm glad that he's back. His mental health is straight and whatever. But again, like, people just assholes in wrestling, and you know, honestly, you have to know where you go home to. If you know where you go home to, if you know where you go home to, then you don't have to put up a front like that. There's one thing to put yourself out there as a character of what you're doing in wrestling, amid those 4 posts and the entrance areas. But when you carry it outside, people can expose you like Bow Wow on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, you think you taking a picture next to a private plane, but why am I sitting like a couple rows from you on Southwest? It don't match that way.
Now, Shin-Blade, with that being said, I got to step in here. Because we do a segment on our show, and it's called the Mark Out Moment. That's when people like us that are around the business or in the business, and we've dealt with what you've dealt with, seeing these fans, whatnot. But we had a moment that we might not have been waving the flag of this wrestler or whatever situation, but it deep down, the kid in us, the fan in us, kind of was like, hey, yo, this is kind of dope. I'm in this moment, or I'm sitting in the locker room next to this guy. I know you talked about Bret Hart earlier, but Shin-Blade, what was your Mark Out moment?
Okay, besides Bret Hart, I could say Jim Ross, for one, because it was many things about Jim Ross other than his celebrity. One was, how can I say this? One was in Baltimore, Freddie Gray, you know, killed by police, you know, missed protocol, accidentally or on purpose, whoever you talk to. And then there were riots happening in Baltimore, and I lived downtown, and I was there in the middle of it. And I was telling people how real it was, and my family was concerned, that, you know, whatever. But again, being black and whatever of that nature, nothing was going to happen for real to me, because it was like, you know, against the police, against Caucasian people, if people want to throw it to that. So in Baltimore, it was a lockdown for about, I think, a week or two. And we had curfews. We had to be in the house by 9 o'clock. And there were military, like National Guards all over downtown. It was like the Dark Knight Rises, with those cars walking around. So they caught you, they questioned you a bit, then they probably had to take you and process you. So after that was the Floyd Mayweather fight with Manny Pacquiao, which we all wanted to see, but it was trash. So the day after that was everything open. Stephanie Rollins Blake opened up everything, which she should have did that a couple days before, so the bars can make some money.
Right.
Jim Ross had a show, and you know, being on a radio show, we talked to a couple people, and we had an interview backstage. And I'll be glad to forward you that video, because it's not on my page.
Okay.
He had this one-man show. We enjoyed it. We interviewed, and he promoted us. He's like, you know, listen to these guys and everything. And it gave me such an aura that I walked around Inner Harbor like, dude, I just interviewed, because I was on a radio show. We just interviewed Jim Ross, the man who was the voice of Mid-South Wrestling. He was a little bit of voice of WCW, WWF, like Attitude Era, by God. And and he killed him and all that. It was incredible. So I had an aura with that. And plus, there are a couple times where I tweeted Jim Ross. He tweeted me back because I would tweet some congratulatory.
Yeah.
And he knew me on a first name basis. So he didn't call me Shin-Blade. He called me Shin. And I still think that the many people that Jim Ross knows in the business, he knows my name, and I'm like this lower level guy. He's with Jerry the King Lawler. He's been with Vince McMahon. He's been with Pat Patterson. All these legends and big stars and commentated on their matches. Tony Schiavone, who's a legend himself too, he knows who Shin is.
Man.
And it's not of something of you should bow to me. It's like, dude, he knows who you are and shakes your hand and takes pictures with you out in conventions. And every time I say that, I get a chill up my spine. Like, yo, really? Because I would be more content if I walked up on him and say, "How you doing, Jim? Hey, how's it going, sir?" I would have felt
right.
You understand what I'm saying? I would have felt like okay with that. That would have been in line, the bare minimum. But he says, "How you doing, Shin? How's it going?" And that's it. I remember I went to Florida WrestleMania weekend. What was it, a couple of years ago, and his wife just got killed. And his table was across from mine, and I was working for a friend of mine, and I ended up working with Leilani Perez, who was Katrina on Lucha Underground. Dude, if you want to talk about a mark, that was a mark out moment for me also. Katrina, the valet de Mil Muertes, dude, she is as beautiful in real life as she is in her photos and on video. Okay. She is fine. I was like that Eddie Murphy geek character from Bowfinger. You want to talk about a geek? You could have put I could have had pimples. I could have been sweating. I could have had the raspy voice like the guy from The Simpsons. I felt like that guy.
Yeah.
Like I was a real nerd about it. But back to Jim Ross, had that, and then plus I was there at WrestleCade when he just had his accident and his eye was all black and everything, and I was a little pissed off because I posted that photo and then people shared it as a disrespect to me. Like, who's this guy with Jim Ross? Right. And it was a group, and I'm gonna say it openly because I like the podcast host because he's a cool guy, but I hate his group because it's full of negativity. It was called In Your Head. Wrestling, and it's full of negativity and people who want to be trolls on keyboards and type whatever. But he was like, "Who's this guy?" And I was gonna curse, in response. But I was like, "Well, you sharing my picture, so who's the real loser?"
Right.
So anyway, Jim Ross is one guy. AJ Styles, who I had on my YouTube talking about video games with the radio show. And, he was the IWGP champion at the time, and we're hanging out with him at a Denny's in Philadelphia. Then he was on my blog video at the end of a Ring of Honor show talking about he would like to face off against showing up from Barry Gordy's Last Dragon, Kiss My Converse. And I will forward you that.
Okay, please do.
But again, AJ Styles, even if he never went to WWE, he still looked great to me. Phenomenal. All that work in TNA, he wasn't in the Impact. All that work in TNA, he's the IWGP champion. The match with Shinsuke Nakamura, which was down the road later where they killed each other in Wrestle Kingdom. He was that guy to me. I can name a lot of people. Kenny Omega, which I don't have a picture. Sorry, that's my Ray Rice jersey.
I was trying to see what it was over there, man.
Yeah, I'm a supporter of Ray Rice. He did wrong, but what he did. But you got to give the guy a chance. But again, Double Jeopardy got him kicked off the NFL and the Baltimore Ravens, so I'm still holding on to that. Even though he did his sentence that the judge gave him. That's another story for another day.
Another day.
But again, AJ Styles, he was another guy. It's just many people in there in the business. Teddy Long, Stevie Ray. Stevie Ray, I talk to him every now and then. We talk black. Ernest the Cat Miller, who kept calling me Marvin Gaye at WrestleCade. It's just I'd name one right now, Jazz.
Yeah.
She's on her retirement tour, and she's such as sweet as can be. And I was amazed by that. Now I'll go into a little story. I remember as a kid playing with wrestling figures. You know, I had Bruce the Barber Beefcake and all this, and my stepdad saw me, and he's like, "Where are the black ones at?" It goes full circle with this representation type.
Yep.
So at first, you know, I felt like that pause before a baby cries or something. Like I was ashamed of playing with these figures or whatever. But he wasn't on the figures. He was like, they're not black. So when Ron Simmons won the WCW championship, he was so excited. And it was here in Baltimore, Maryland. He liked Butch Reed. So a lot of people I would just run up on, I would say, my stepfather loved you. He passed away about almost 3 years ago. The one awkward moment I had was I met Mark Marrow.
Okay.
And I thought Mark Marrow was black. And he said, I'm not black. And I was just like, word? You were like Little Richard in WCW, and Mark, you know, the tan and everything, the hair. I'm like, that's a black dude, like for real. Like, he's like, nah, I ain't black.
What is he?
Dude, it blew my mind. I'm like, melanin skin, whatever.
Yeah.
I think he's like Jewish descent.
Wow.
So I was like, dude, like, you know, I was marking out in my mind because I was just like, you know, you black.
Yeah.
So it was that, and you know, again, so it's a couple people that I've marked out on the inside, but and I'm gonna give listeners a tidbit. When you approach somebody superstars, calmly walk up to them, control your heartbeat, and just talk to them. Don't run up on them and tell them like, "Yo, when you won the championship, like back in 2000, something." Like, no, just talk to them. They're humans too. And you know, that's why I listen to a lot of. At the time, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts now because of the way that the time goes. I listen to what questions that people ask. Like if there's certain situations, I would ask questions, but it was like, you won the title back in 1998. How would you feel? Like, all right, next podcast. I don't want to listen to that. I want to see like, yo, who are you behind this? Who are you when you get out the ring? Yeah. Like, let's talk some movies. Let's talk music. Let's do this and let's do that. Like Paul London, to me, I interviewed him and he was talking about Bobby Brown. He loved Bobby Brown.
Serious, dig that,
like
man. Every little step.
Prerogative.
Oh man.
And you know, it's a funny interview. So I talk about stuff like that. Like I want to get to know these people outside the ring and who they are. And some people like MJF, you're never going to get that unless like you throw out a whole lot of money for them. And me knowing MJF, that's not going to happen. Yeah. You know, I will pull your card. But the mark out moments, you know, calm your heart, just go in there, and then after your heart beats hard, just go in the restroom somewhere and just like exhale, just let it out. You might let out a fart, but exhale it out. What was your mark out moment?
Woo! Well, like I said, I was in the business, but I'm gonna tell you, and I've actually talked about this on our podcast before. In interviews, people have interviewed me. But my moment, and I shouldn't say this because he turned out to be, well, you know, but I was always the biggest Hogan. Yeah, I was always the biggest Hogan fan growing up.
All right, next question.
Oh, no, you brought it up, man.
Next question.
We went to WrestleMania 3.
We don't talk about Duke. We don't talk about Duke.
And you know the
No,
craziest thing
no.
about it? When I met him, because I met him at the Arnold Schwarzenegger Fest in Columbus, Ohio. It was 2 years before that happened. Now, one of my buddies that I was really close with growing up, his name is Robert Jackson, rest in peace. I remember saying to him, like, bro, you know what's crazy? As much as we love Hogan, Stone Cold, whoever, they still who they are. So what if we find out later on in their races? This is before it even happens. 2 years later, that happens. So so to be honest, when it happened, I wasn't shocked because as you stated earlier, no matter what we see as far as the character, who are they behind that character? You know what I mean?
Well, honestly, I was a Ultimate Warrior fan back in the day. Then you found out like how he was, but after the Ultimate Warrior, I was a Randy Savage fan, and I always said that to me, '80s Randy Savage was better than '90s Randy Savage. Because even though he was chauvinistic against Miss Elizabeth and telling her how to walk and how to go, it was just a great heel guy. Even the Macho King was good too. Yeah. But the '90s, he was getting up there, and it was just, I guess when he moved to the long tights and the coats and the cowboy hats, it wasn't working for me. But when he got there with Diamond Dallas Page, I loved it. And the fact that two Jewish men was really going at it on WCW, it didn't go over in Diamond Dallas Page after that. It was so great because Jewish people have a rapport not being in sports or not being good at sports from stereotypes. But again, I don't talk about Duke. F him. When he gets on TV, it's like 45 getting on TV. I don't want to hear it. I don't care. You got money, go away. Give opportunity to somebody. So that's why this year at WrestleMania 37, him and Titus O'Neil, and I love Titus O'Neil as a person. And I never met Titus O'Neil, period, but his posts and everything. And I think I just love him because of his work. I don't know if he's retired or semi-retired. But when I found out that Duke was with Titus O'Neil, I'm like, okay, they can't get Titus O'Neil a ring, so let's pull the money in and put Duke up there with him. And I'm just cringing towards that. Like, if I was very popular enough, I would have let out an expletive tweet about Hulk Hogan hosting WrestleMania and get a lot of likes and retweets. And I would do that because of my feelings. I wouldn't do that just to say like you. Just say that I want to get attention, so please like my stuff and retweet my stuff. So yeah, I don't talk about Duke because he's a doof. Him, his son, his daughter was okay when I met her, but I felt a little bit off of her too. And his crazy ass cougar.
All of them, man. But I want to tell you real quick. Titus actually is a great dude, man. As I told you, I actually had a tryout. Back then, it was Florida Championship Wrestlers before NXT. Titus was the first guy I met there. And Titus had just had some dental work done. I don't know if I should say that, but he did. And so he couldn't work that day.
Is that why he can't keep his mouth shut?
He literally had just had it done. So I walk up to him and I'm like, hey, just like you said, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. And I mean, he was the coolest dude. He didn't know the 20 guys that were trying. He didn't care anything. I mean, but he was the nicest, sweetest person, man. And this is before his run on WWE. He was already signed and everything. So yes, Titus, if you ever hit this video, you're a great dude, man. Salute to me. And I never forgot how you took care of me. But Shin, I can't hold you up too long, but we got to do a part 2. But before we get out of here, is one more segment that I like to do. Well, I'm going to do both of them back to back, so I want you to answer both of them, okay? The first segment is called Book Yourself. Now, we know who Shin-Blade is in the world of professional wrestling and wrestling media. But Shin-Blade, if you can place yourself anywhere, whether it be WWE, AEW, Impact, ROH, and doing anything, where would you place yourself? Where would you book yourself and be effective to a whole nother level in the world of pro wrestling? That's question number one.
Well, as a NPC, a non-playable character, or like an off-screen individual, I would still be like this monk type character, but maybe ramp it up about 1,000, where I would be doing tricks as if I'm Doctor Strange, like the Fiend, like opposite the Fiend or something, like you've seen from Benedict Cumberbatch. Wrestling wise, I don't know, because I mean, I'm up there. I mean, I wouldn't talk about my age like that, but I would say personally, and honestly, you said book yourself. I would book myself to at least be in the ring at the moment where I have the Hurt Business surrounding Hulk Hogan. I would be the guy doing commentary on that.
Nice.
And I would do like a TVMA style or rated R style. I would be just hurling curse words as if like just way out of character. I will book myself to be a commentator for the Hurt Business surrounding Hulk Hogan, Big E. I would say the New Day also, because they were indifferent when he came back. Mark Henry, just any brother. Period. Even I would put New Jack in the ring. And just say, look, have at them. Have at them. This is going to be a 20-minute minimum time limit. So whatever in 20 minutes that you want to do, have at it. Put the kids to bed. There we go. If it wasn't for him, I would have Lars Sullivan do the same situation.
Yo, Big Swole.
I would put Big Swole with the Hulk Hogan situation. Lars Sullivan with the LGBT wrestling community, like the toughest LGBT people. I would put Nyla Rose, Billy Dixon. Who else? I would put Effie in there also. I don't know too many. I'm not trying to
out anybody, right?
LGBT, but I would put them out there. So yeah, that's how I book myself.
Nice. I brought up Big Swole because she actually posted a meme on Twitter not too long ago about what you just said about having a Hurt Business, having a nice 1-on-4 with the Hulkster. So it's funny you mentioned that because Swole put that out there.
Danny Cage of the Monster Factory did the same thing too.
Seriously,
he said I would book the Hurt. I would put Hulk Hogan in the ring, because I think there was an episode of Raw when everybody was out there.
Yeah.
I'll put Hulk Hogan with the ring with the Hurt Business and make everybody leave. And I quote tweeted him and said I would pay front row for that. I would literally pay front row for that. I'd be the Biggie. I'd be the gift of Biggie Langston eating the popcorn all. I would
love it. Shit.
Or Kermit the Frog with the tea.
Woo!
Or that other one with the dude that got the solo cup and just walking away from the situation. I would.
Oh man, shit, dog! I could go 3 hours with you. We gonna pause. So we're gonna have to bring you back definitely. I'm gonna get your schedule and I'm gonna get my co-host because we gotta definitely bring you back because I want to delve in next time with the inner workings of giving a great interview into some of your favorite interviewers, but interviewees. But I want to hold that off until I bring you on for the next time. So y'all, I got you on a cliffhanger right there. But Shin, before we get out of here, it's the very final segment. It's 60 seconds. It's called Ring the Bell. You have 60 seconds to talk about anything. You can promote your podcast. You can inspire people. You can tell me what you ate yesterday. But Shin-Blade, you got 60 seconds. Can you ring the bell?
All right. Well, you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram under Shinsational1, SHINSATIONALONE, Twitter and Instagram. I'm gonna change my Facebook to that too. It's under official Shin-Blade. I gotta create a TikTok and Snapchat just to have the name. Pretty much keep yourself at a humble heart, work hard, Don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do anything because you can actually do it. Keep an open mind to learn from anybody in the business. Anything that works out for you, thank that person and be right about it. You never know who you're gonna meet, so watch your words. Keep them sweet because you end up having to eat them later. Quote Jerry the King Lawler. Um, just, like I said, just be humble and know where you are, know where you go home to, know even know how much bank you have. And that's it. That's all I got. I wish I can do the shy hands, but I'm holding a tablet, so that won't happen.
It's all good, man. It's all good. Just get you a tripod when we bring you on for part 2, man. Somehow I'll set it up. But it's all good, man. But Shin-Blade, again, I want to thank you for coming on this show, man. It's been amazing. I feel like I've been sitting under the learning tree. And no, I'm not gassing you up, OG. I'm not gassing you up, dog. But I feel like I've been sitting under the learning tree, man. Not to mention, I also got to shout you out. Is the headdress? Is that a shout out to Derek Jackson's wife? I don't know if you saw that meme yet, have you?
You know what? I saw that today, and that dude is a fucking clown. He broke down and was talking about how men ain't nothing, that they cheat on their wives, and he was a big pussy feminist. And it's true what they say about men cheating on their wives and everything, which is true. But he didn't practice what he preached. He was like, I had a sexual relationship with a woman that was not my wife, but we didn't have sex. I'm like, dude, shut up. I get the fact of emotionally cheating on your wife, hanging out and just letting your burdens down or whatever. But he let out this, and then look, why was Duke trying to apologize like he was The Rock?
Right, like, in third person.
In third person, he was like, yo, he did an apology. So I was like, you that dude, you him.
I just saw a meme that said, I'm bugging out watching Derek Jackson do a reaction video to his video like it's not him. You know what I'm saying?
Did you see that from Kev on stage?
I think he did. Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, bro.
Shula King just made one like a couple hours ago, so I gotta watch it. But again, the kufi is Afrikaans. It's just something that goes with it. Honestly, I'll say this though. The way the wife was looking, I was feeling for her so much. Like she had the head bonnet on, and I thought she was gonna do the busted challenge where she was gonna come up ready to go on a date or something, because she was looking busted. Like he was holding hands and gripping, and not talking against the wife because she got played, but she looked like an extreme cuck. Like it was a cuck holding video. Like he gonna have the mistress come in and they gonna do what they do, even though it wasn't sex.
Yeah.
Like she was sitting there, but I was waiting for that busted challenge to come up where she come up striking hot, going out.
Right.
I'm gonna do me, you stay in the doghouse. So, like I said, when I heard that, and honestly, I didn't think I was gonna hear anything like that because he's not in my interest level. But the fact that the whole thing was coming off worse than what it was.
Yep.
Okay, yes, you cheated on your wife emotionally. All right, it's cool. It happens. It's not like sex. I'm not condoning cheating. It's cool. Talk to your wife. Tell her. Talking whatever, however that's gonna work out. But he said it. Then he made a video holding her hand while she looked like a cock. And then after that, he made a reaction video like, "Yo, dude was doing his job. No, you don't have accountability. Yep. Own it." So I don't care if you are. I don't care if you're a Future. I don't care if you are Quavo. With the Sweetie thing. You got points above this dude. You own it.
Yep.
So I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. Because you made the whole thing worse, just like Justice Smollett and the whole nine. You can't help yourself. And I don't. And honestly, being Shin-Blade, being Zen, I don't mean to wish bad things on people, but I hope your stock plummets because you are through. Dude is through. You are cut. And honestly, who was taking marriage advice from a dude that's been married 4 years?
Yeah.
Compared to anybody who's married for 20 or 10 years. I want my advice to be from older people, elders who've been through the pain. Raise kids, they in college. How we gonna keep the love together? You know, Steve Harvey, even though black people not too keen on him.
Right.
But anybody with XP on their level. I'm not going to tell you, look, you're a former indie wrestler. I'm not going to tell you what to do in the ring as far as physicality unless I know the psychology of something that you could be a better wrestler. I have trained in the ring, but I'm not fully trained like you. I have taken bumps before and they take a toll on you. But I'm not going to tell you how to do things and I'm here on step 1 or step 2.
Yeah.
If I end up going to AEW or WWE the next day, you see me on NXT every week, yeah, I'm gonna say stuff like, yeah, this is how you're supposed to do it, whatever, but come on now.
For sure.
Like I said, I mean, honestly, you got me ranting like Adam Carolla. I might have to change my show up a little bit.
Oh man, we out there. We even gonna talk about that next time too. How you don't just interview wrestlers because you had It's Living Single on your show. We're gonna talk about it next time. We out here.
That was a personal thing for me.
Oh, okay. Yo, we out here, y'all. We done kept y'all all night. We'll be back next week. Don't worry about it. You know what it is. Deshaun Whip Dog Whipple. Daryl, get back here. Hurry up, get back. We had the guy, the man. Check out his podcast. He already told you. Shin-Blade. We'll see you next time. This Friday on the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders Podcast, a.k.a. The Whip Show. We out here, guys. Take care.